AI has gotten really good at real-time translation and language processing, right? So we've seen examples of a Chinese speaking person communicating in real time with a French speaking person. You think about a few years back, it was a great concept, but it didn't really work. But AI has really gotten to the point to where it's highly efficient, highly reliable, and can support those conversations.
It's time for CX education. Welcome to the podcast for enterprise CX professionals, the people who want to connect with customers on their own terms, before, during, and after a purchase is made. In each episode, you'll learn how to create experiences your customers love. Ready? Here we go.
Hello, and welcome to a new episode of the CX Education Podcast, a podcast brought to you by Cinch, the Customer Communications Cloud. Today, my guest is Robert Galop. Robert is a partner and CMO at the CPaaS Acceleration Alliance. Prior, he was CMO and head of product at a company called Intellipeer. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you, Gwen. Glad to be on today.
Yeah, excited for this discussion. So today we want to really focus on this report that was released by the CPaaS Acceleration Alliance on the state of CPaaS. So maybe let's start from there. And what is CPaaS, right?
Yeah. So the funny thing about CPaaS is nobody actually wants to say CPaaS, right? So even since a few years back, we would have called you guys a CPaaS provider. Even in Intellipeer, we were definitely in the CPaaS space, but everybody's evolved, and for good reason. And we'll talk about that here in a bit. But I guess to start the state of CPaaS report, we can actually start with the Alliance itself and why the Alliance has come together. So I'm sure you've been in the industry for a while. I spent a good 6 years at Intellipeer helping move from being really a telecom provider into a software and a CPaaS provider. And my partners at the Alliance as well. We've all been in the industry and looked at APIs. We've looked at selling telecom and all of those fun things. But where the market has really been moving over the last several years is you think about CPaaS, and we think about SMS, and Uber is one of the founders of that CPaaS movement. But that market, as we look out, is going to grow significantly as we get into the end of the decade, right? So we're at $16 billion as an industry right now. We're forecasting that the industry is going to grow to $100 billion by the end of this decade. And how's it going to do that? Well, it's not going to do that on the back of APIs and developers sending SMSs from their applications. Where it's going to do that is really from telcos selling more services to their enterprise customers, from small and mid-sized enterprises leveraging more of these capabilities in chat, messaging, phone call automation, and self-service and things like that, and really getting in and leveraging those to deliver better service to their customers. And what we've done with the Alliance is we've really started to bring all of those pieces of the industry together, right? It's not just a telco that's going to make this happen. It's not just the developer that's going to make this happen, but it's really everybody coming together, playing their part in the industry to get it to $100 billion by the end of this decade. And that's what we're doing with the Alliance, because there's a large enough chunk there for every company to make $1 billion here and there, right, within the market. So there's an opportunity for everybody to work together and really move this industry forward. And that's what we're focused on with the Alliance. And this first state of CPaaS report really lays the foundation for where we see the market at right now, which is you've got a bunch of players playing in the space. There's an opportunity to bring them together. And there's a huge opportunity to focus on driving adoption with small, mid-sized enterprises. We're here today talking about CX and use cases, right? Yep. Focusing more on those use cases and also helping companies that don't traditionally sell much more than minutes and text messages, help them get more into the space and deliver more value to their customers.
Yeah, it's an interesting market. Like you said, like no one really, in a way, wants to talk about CPaaS. And I guess like it's maybe a problem of education as well, in the sense that no company today just wake up one day and say, oh, I'm going to look for a CPaaS provider, in the same way that they will say that for, I'm going to look for, right? Like it's not
Right.
as kind of consolidated into like a one platform that people can leverage easily, or like that can subscribe to easily, right? Like that, maybe that's why there is a level of complexity. And I guess you're right. Like it at the beginning of the term, it was really focused on developers, and they still play a huge role in integrating those capabilities into companies' tech stack. But that's not the only way, right? Like there's a lot of other use cases or other type of company that maybe even don't have developers that can actually embrace those technologies.
Yeah. And it's a really good point. And as you look at how enterprises think about technology, how they purchase technology, they don't go and say, I need a new database, or I need a new CRM or a new CPaaS system. What they're thinking about is, what are the problems that they're trying to solve for? What are the opportunities that they have as a business to grow their business, make life better for their employees, make life better for their customers? So that's where they're starting from. Maybe the technology people in the back office, which represent about 10% of your typical business, are thinking about CPaaS, CRM, databases. But the other 90% of the business is really focused on those use cases and challenges. And that's where we as technologists have often struggled to sell beyond the IT team, right? We get so excited about this cool new API, or now we're talking about ChatGPT and all the cool things you do with it. But we still struggle oftentimes to connect that to, why is the business going to use this, and what's the benefit, and what are the pain points that we're targeting with this technology? So that's a huge area of opportunity that we see with the Alliance, with our members, is let's start talking about those use cases. Let's start talking about the business pain points. And that's going to help everybody in our industry get beyond where this, a little bit of a hole that we've dug ourselves into, where we continue to talk about APIs and we continue to talk about speeds and feeds and get trapped in that. Right?
Yeah. I guess it's still a big part of the business, especially when you target like enterprises. I mean, I know at Cinch, compared to certain of our competitors, maybe we've not focused at first on developers. Like we've always been more focused on business decision makers rather than developers. And developers are definitely play a very important role because they can influence, and they might be the one championing the purchasing of the tech, but they're part of a whole, right? Like, so I think, why should companies still care though? Because there's, I mean, in a way, I hear you on like the CPaaS. At the same time, we see analysts kind of bringing this term forward. Like we're going to see some first, probably Magic Quadrant this year on CPaaS. So I think that's we're still at the beginning, I guess, of this industry grows.
Well, what your enterprise is going to care about here is, what are the cool things that we can do with this, and how can I transform my customer experience? When you look at a doctor's office, great example that a lot of different companies in this space like to leverage. There are all different points in that customer, or really the patient journey, the patient experience, that CPaaS can and does impact today, right? So when you think about doing a remote visit with your doctor, maybe you're doing that over the phone, maybe you're doing that live over a screen, where they're diagnosing, talking about the issues, even writing a prescription live. That's all facilitated by a CPaaS platform today, right? Similarly, as you're going through that visit with your doctor, there's a good chance that there's a recording being made that's also then going back into AI that's doing a transcription of that particular meeting or that particular appointment, that then the doctor, instead of scribbling some unintelligible notes on a pad that somebody else has to go out, figure out how to put that into a system, that AI and the automated system that's all riding on top of that CPaaS is then putting those back into the patient's history, right? So it's better experience for the doctor, better experience for everybody else. Some other points in that patient's journey are also like appointment setting, not having to call into the front desk, but maybe coming in through text messaging or calling and working with an automated assistant. getting automated notifications, hey, your meeting or your appointment's coming up, right? And not forgetting about those things. Those are all also handled through CPaaS platforms today. So lots of really cool things. And that's just one example in the medical space.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? There's so many different use cases that it's almost hard to explain, right? Like, would you say that it's a way, it's like all the different communication channel brought into like a customer or patient journey in a orchestrated way, maybe is kind of how we could describe it. And there's different level of it, right? Which is, I think, why it's complicated to talk about it as a whole, is because it can be messaging, it can be email, it can be voice, it can be all the different channels together. And enterprises or companies already kind of leverage some of these, but maybe not all the possibilities in the most thoughtful way today.
Yeah. And that's one of the big areas that we see a growth opportunity in the industry is these things become so vertical specific and so use case specific that you really need to start looking at companies that are focusing in that area, right? It's not fair to say that, hey, Cinch, or even like a, hey, IBM or anybody else that's developing solutions, go perfect this, right? And then make a gigantic business out of it. But what we're seeing in the market is we're starting to see players that are building on top of these CPaaS platforms, leveraging the tools that a Cinch would bring forth with chatbots and omni-channel messaging and things like that, and building specific solutions for a vertical, right? So that a doctor may not, or the managing practice may not go to a Cinch and say, hey, I need this, but they will go to somebody that's specializing in that, in their industry, whether it's a sales partner, another vendor that's built on top of a Cinch, and they will leverage them. So we see a huge opportunity in the market. And this is where we start to talk about small, mid-sized enterprises and getting vertical specific. That's going to be a huge accelerant for the CPaaS market here over the next several years, is more of those vertical solutions.
Right. So from a solution perspective, right? Because I think within kind of this cloud communication, you have the APIs or the company that provide this API that allow a lot of companies to actually build their own, right? Like they could do whatever they want with them and like integrate them into their tech stack and build a solution on top. And like in a company like Cinch or some of our competitors, of course, like also have some of those solutions on top, right? It's a multi-layered type of technology where some companies maybe only provide a solution but don't provide the API, or I want to say the connectivity layer, because there is, like you mentioned, the telecoms, there is also a layer, I don't know if we can say underneath, but that is like the infrastructure and the actual telecom, I guess, of it, or like the actual SMS, like the aggregators part of it, right? Like as well, like all of this plays its part as well.
Yeah. And it's really exciting in the Alliance. We're seeing each one of these pieces of the industry come together, and we're seeing the SMS aggregators and the underlying telecom providers coming in and saying, okay, where do I find that next partner up in the stack that's going to leverage my services to then go and create the next level of value that can then be sold into a sales partner or somewhere else. So it's really exciting. We've got, as I mentioned, SMS aggregators and telecom players that are working with technology service providers who are then working with sales partners and solution providers all in the mix. And they're bringing in little pieces, right? Some people are great at video. Some people are great at AI. And what we're seeing come together in the industry is all these players coming together and really creating those unique solutions. And that's where we're going to get the breadth. That's where we're going to start to get that scale, is all of these individual players playing their part.
Yeah, I know, exactly. I think we definitely see that at Cinch as well. Like, I mean, we have very strong infrastructure and like direct connection to hundreds of operators. So we kind of manage that part, but we have also very strong partnership with the SAP or like, you know, like Adobe type of companies, where actually working together makes it stronger, right? Because it is complex for one single company, I guess, to do it all. In some cases it works. In some cases you do need this kind of like relationships. Why do companies need to kind of embrace those technologies in the light of like improving customer experience? Like, what do they give to what else? Well, does that give them an edge, or like what is for them like the benefits of embracing all of those new technologies?
Yeah, it definitely gives them an edge. If you look at Forrester, I don't know if Forrester still does it, but back when I was tracking them several years ago, they had this customer experience index where they tracked companies that invested heavily and led their markets in CX and companies that did not. And the companies that invested outperformed in the market 2x their peers, right? And I think that's a testament to the benefits you get within not just the customer side, but the operations and employee side by investing in that customer experience piece, right? And it's these underlying technologies, now that we have the ability to automate things across any customer touch point. The fact that we can now bring AI in to fill in the holes on a lot of things that used to require a human to go in and do those things. It's not about replacing a job. It's about making things more streamlined and allowing those people that used to have to transcribe things to go do something more meaningful and provide more value to the business, right? So these technologies are core to that. And you just look back to the healthcare example that we talked about a little bit ago. These technologies have the ability to improve how customers or patients are scheduling their appointments. It improves how they go in and manage their appointments. It improves how they can manage their accounts. It improves their interactions with the doctors or with the salesperson or with the other people that they're dealing with, right? And it's really about connecting those things and getting the more mundane tasks out of the way so that everybody can have more meaningful interactions person to person. Right?
Yeah, and I think we see like, I mean, you're using the patient doctor relationship as an example. And I think the interesting part here is that it can apply to every type of customer journeys, whether it's in retail, whether it's with your bank, whether it's like, and I guess past COVID, if we can consider ourselves past COVID now, we've seen this kind of like acceleration, right? Because when we couldn't go in person and do a lot of those things in person, no one goes to a bank anymore. I mean, maybe I'm exaggerating, but like, I think there is definitely companies had to adapt to fast tracking their digital transformation. And I think this played a huge role into it because the customers demand this, right? Like they now want to have this digital experiences and this digital relationships with brand and with company, right? They want that to happen. So I also feel that companies that don't embrace it, they will just be left behind, right? Like in a way that customers expect it from the brands. Yeah.
And you touch on a really good point there. The companies that have already invested in this infrastructure can then go change rapidly based on changing customer expectations, right? So just think about the video example. Pre-COVID, you had to go do all kinds of things to get some type of a video experience stood up. Whereas now, we actually have one of the members of the CPaaS Acceleration Alliance has a video solution that you can literally just drop a little script into your website. And now you have a full-blown patient or some other type of video experience that can be logged, that can be managed, and all of those things. So the difference between the old way where you had to deploy infrastructure and worry about all kinds of projects to get that stood up to now, I can drop in a script in wherever I want to create that experience. I'm now moving at the speed of my customers versus really dependent on a bunch of other things. So the companies that have made that investment are going to be much more agile, much better prepared to react to changes in customer needs, react to changes in business needs and business realities. So I guess a good pitch here for you guys. If you haven't already started making that investment, it's probably time, right? And the beautiful thing is it's not a rip and replace thing. We always pitch that at IntelliPeer, and really any provider can layer these services on top of the stuff that they're doing today. So it's beautiful that this is not a rip and replace huge IT project necessarily required to do this. And I know as somebody who's run operations at a contact center and had to deal with the IT things, the last thing you want to deal with is rip and replace. Same thing with a doctor or anybody else in operations. So people really should be starting to look at these things if they aren't already, and making that investment. And awesome companies like Cinch have those resources to help. I know we're not here to do a pitch, but you guys do have the resources to help companies make that transition and implement things smartly, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think what's been really interesting to watch as well, like you said, is like it's not anymore like a privilege of the biggest, right? Like it's every single small business around the corner can also kind of embed that into their ways of working, right? Like you can have a text message sent from your hairdresser as a reminder to your appointment, right? Like it can be any type of shops, like any like small business can do it. Would you say that a lot of companies have started to embrace it? I think we see it with like local businesses, like a hairdresser or like your repair shop. What are kind of the other big use case that you see most common, or the one that are transforming the fastest?
There's another great use case from one of our members that it's kind of like the scheduling thing, but it's online ordering for meals and setting restaurant reservations, right? So they can actually come in over WhatsApp and see the menu and order something either for pickup or, get a table set up. And those things, to your point, are really easy to set up. This isn't a lengthy IT project because there's no small mid-sized enterprise on the planet that has people sitting around waiting to implement an IT project. These are things that they can actually go in, order, and be up and running within a day, right? And that's the beauty of these technologies is as we start to get more of these vertical specific applications, you can go in and order it and have it up and running the same day without any IT resources. And it makes an impact on your business that same day. So you can literally go, in the example of the restaurant, go from the phone ringing off the hook to somebody literally just looking at orders and them dropping back either to your kitchen or going to your table scheduling app, all right there. Same day impact, relatively cost efficient, right? And I'm really excited to see more of those types of use cases come forward.
And that's a good point that you're bringing up here. We haven't really touched on the multiplicity of the channels and the fact that the world is multi-channels right now, right? Like we all communicate with our friends and families through so many different ways, right? Like I know that sometimes I have to remember, wait, which channel am I using with this particular friend? Am I on WhatsApp? Are we texting? Are we like on Facebook Messenger? Like, and it's the same, I guess, with brands, and depending on where we live and like our habits, we have preferences on which channel we want to use. And I guess it's going to become more and more critical for companies to be able to be everywhere in a way and offer the same service and the same availability to customers on any channel, which is probably quite hard to manage for small businesses before embracing this kind of CPaaS or cloud communication tools.
Yeah, and it's really exciting because those same companies can now go and deploy a chatbot to their website to answer customer questions, but also have that same chatbot supporting a WhatsApp conversation if the customer wants to be texting. I've been doing a lot of travel in Europe here over the last 6 months, and I can't tell you how many reservations and interactions with rental companies and things like that I've had over WhatsApp. And I know I'm not conversing with somebody, I'm conversing with the bot, but the interaction is seamless. It gets me exactly what I need. They're able to prescribe what the experience is for me so I don't have to guess, right? All of these things are baked in, and it's coming through a way that's natural for me as the consumer and super easy for them as a company to deploy. Because I know some of these companies, it's literally somebody that's renting out a couple of apartments. So this isn't somebody with a big IT budget, right? But they've deployed something really cool, really seamless, and I would absolutely use them again. So again, it's really cool to see these things come together and that seamless experience, whether I'm going through the website or WhatsApp or what have you, has been really awesome.
And I would say that not that many companies do it really well. And I guess maybe in a way, some of smaller companies might be able to do it better than some of the biggest one. Because I think that's the thing as well. Like you, with this technology, and there's still a big part of it that is APIs related. So not just ready to implement solutions, right? There's also a lot of like very strong APIs you can implement if you don't want to buy a ready solution that maybe don't have the level of security or the level of scale that you will need as like a big player. But there's opportunities to kind of cater to both, right? Like, and I think if you are a big company and have the IT resources to kind of put it together, you also can, or you can work with a provider that might help you put it together, right? But I think that's the reality of it, is that it expanded to all type of companies and probably through all the different verticals. This is also why it's hard to explain, because it's just so embedded into everything, right?
Yep. And that's our biggest opportunity as an industry, is really to connect with those end user use cases and the business needs. And it's through platforms like we're using today, but it's also through those go-to-market partnerships, right? It doesn't necessarily make sense that a Cinch should be out there pitching a WhatsApp ordering thing to a micro business in some other part of the world. But it does make sense that one of the sales partners or one of the technology partners building on top of Cinch is doing that, right? And that's where we get to, there's a huge opportunity for growth for everybody in this industry, leveraging the technology partnerships, leveraging go-to-market, and figuring out how do we address as many use cases as possible.
Right. Yeah. Well, how do you see things evolve? I think like in the report, like you mentioned, I think it was CPaaS 3.0 and some of the kind of evolution that we're seeing. Where do you see some of the biggest growth? I know we talked about multi-channel and we talked about chatbots and like, so what are some of the levers?
So just at a top level for the market, we see three really big opportunities right now. One, we've talked a lot about the SME piece, but there's also, Gartner, I don't remember the specific number. It's somewhere north of 90%, I think, of enterprises over the next several years will have CPaaS as a core competency in their IT team, right? So there's no doubt that enterprises are going to get a lot of bang for the buck out of CPaaS. And a particular use case that I near and dear to my heart, again, I used to do a lot of stuff on the contact center side. You know, you implement a CCaaS or a contact center solution, and it does a great job of taking calls and messages in and routing them to an agent. But how do you deploy really bespoke experiences on top of that? Automation, integration with your systems and things like that. Beautiful part of CPaaS is you can literally layer that in with your contact center solution, and your developers and your business analysts can all go in and create those experiences that make your business special, right? So when we think about CPaaS in the enterprise, that's another huge opportunity for the industry. And that gets us into addressing the other 90% of the enterprise that your typical APIs and databases and things like that don't take care of. So that's the second big area. And then the third big area is we really see a lot of opportunity with telcos, global telcos, especially in mobile first company and in mobile first countries where you've got a lot of mobile phone based use cases, a lot of opportunity to take advantage of and apply AI and automation for messaging. That's the other big area that we're seeing opportunity. And we're seeing a lot of demand from our alliance members, especially in Europe, Middle East, Asia, Africa. We're seeing a lot of really cool use cases and success stories from telcos that are starting to layer in some of those CPaaS capabilities on top of their networks.
So what would you say are the use cases from a telco perspective?
It really depends on the telco, right? We have one of our alliance members has partnered with and is targeting a lot of small, mid-sized enterprises. That the WhatsApp reservation and ordering thing is a specific example out of the Middle East. But we're also seeing telcos start to think about how can I go in and get closer to the developers within my customer base, right? I've already sold minutes, I've already sold connectivity and security. what's that next level of value that I can bring to my customer base, right? And it's money there for the taking for the telcos because they already have the relationship.
Right.
They just need to figure out what are the use cases that are important to their customer base. And a couple of great things there. A lot of the incumbents are working within their country or their region so they can partner with and learn from partners and telcos from other areas of the world. And they can work together to figure out what solutions work better. So there's a lot of opportunity for partnership. And so they don't have to worry necessarily about competition from these other companies that they're talking with, because again, they're focused regionally, right? You have a handful of huge global tier one providers, but even they're focused on very specific things. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for telcos to partner with each other, learn from each other, and look back at their customer base. And it really will be a more regional and opportunistic scenario for each of these guys.
Right. Okay. You mentioned AI and we talked a bit about chatbot, and I think we definitely understand, like from a customer care perspective, especially like the value for customers to interact first with this chatbot that is seamlessly transfer maybe to like an agent. I know that's one of the use case we see at Cinch as well. Like, what would you say is like the biggest opportunity with AI? How can like AI be such a big part of the future of communication and the future of CPaaS?
So a few different ones. One, AI has gotten really good at real-time translation and language processing, right? So we've seen examples of a Chinese speaking person communicating in real time with a French speaking person, right? And you think about a few years back, it was a great concept, but it didn't really work. But AI has really gotten to the point to where it's highly efficient, highly reliable, and can support those conversations. So we've been seeing commercial success in the market with that particular piece. Two other favorite pieces of mine are dealing with things after the interaction has been done, right? We all, or a lot of us have seen, the AI assistants that sit on a call and will transcribe things. And ChatGPT in particular does a great job of turning that into notes and calling out the important parts of the conversation. So that's another great piece for AI today. And then the other piece is analytics, right? We've talked about machine learning. We've talked about large data sets. Data is so important to companies, and we never take enough advantage of it, right? So if we can get in and start to look at trends, start to deploy AI models against all of the data that we as a company or we as companies generate, we can start to get a lot more actionable insights out of it. You don't need somebody back in a darkly lit room with a spreadsheet looking and trying to figure all this stuff out, right? Which I think has been the model for the last 20 years. And the nice thing about that piece, as well as like the post-interaction pieces, is that it doesn't require you to do a lot of changes to how you interact with your customers. So if you're wanting to dip your toe in and you don't want things to be really disruptive to your customer experience or your employee experience, you can start by leveraging those things. And then as you get more comfortable and you see how things can work, then you can get into some of the bigger AI projects, like completely automating all of your interactions and things like that.
Yeah, and I think that's like we see the first level interaction that users might have like with a bot, right? Like when they have very easy question or like, I don't know, what is the balance on my account, right? Like, so that's kind of easy type of automation that can be done, doesn't require a person there to really give back the answer. I think like the beauty of it as well is like how it can help the agent, right? Like, because it might be back in the hand of the agent to answer specific question, and then they have pre-done script, and they like, so there's also all of that interaction is facilitating so that maybe it can speed up and bring efficiencies to like how you run those interaction between agents and users.
Yep. And something I don't know that we talk about much is those bots, all of those interactions that are happening are gold as well, because you're seeing what customers are asking about. You're seeing where they're having difficulties. And going back to the data and the analytics side of things, you may be thinking about deploying those bots to improve your customer experience and automate things, but you're also getting an incredible level of intelligence back to the people that
Right.
are building out your products and doing these other things.
Yeah.
So it's a win in many areas to deploy
Yeah.
that type of technology.
And I guess I don't think that many companies are there yet, right? Like, I mean, I've interacted a lot lately with a lot of airlines and for many things, but I think like it always puzzled me when you have a bot on the side and you start interacting with it and it just sends you link on like, here's, you can go and get to an FAQ on our website. I'm like, what? Like, how is that even possible, right? Like, you're like,
Right.
why do you have a bot if it's sending me to a link of FAQ on the website, right?
Right.
So I think there's definitely still a long way to go for a lot of companies. We've talked a bit about the fact that basically CPaaS, cloud communication, can be for everybody. They're like companies that don't need it because it's like when you target everybody, you don't target anybody, right? Like,
Right,
but in,
right.
in some case, like it does feel that this technology can be embedded to like any type of company. Everyone have to engage with their customers at some point or another, right?
Yeah, it really can, right? So in that sense, this is a hard conversation to connect back to individual buyers, right? But it's also, that's our job as marketers within the space, is to connect more with the buyers and focus on those use cases and the needs, and also partner with others in the market that are addressing those particular issues, right? So yeah, that's a phrase that I love to use, is if it can do everything, it does absolutely nothing for anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
I know. And yet, I guess that's what we're saying, right? Like CPaaS is
Yeah.
the miracle platform. It can do everything.
Yeah. And I'd say the other challenge, are pretty wide ranging here, but I'd say the other challenge for us as a market is, I've talked to a lot of business owners that are so busy in the day to day, and they're just trying to keep their business running, and they're not thinking about what's next. And they're not thinking about how can I prove X, Y, or Z. They literally they're going to work 12 hours today and then go home and collapse, right? So our challenge as marketers and technology providers is, how can we get in front of those people? You know, maybe it's a once a year show, or it's articles that they're reading here, there, and elsewhere. But it's difficult to connect with those individuals. And it makes it hard for us marketers to get out there and do those things. So that is a challenge for us, is to find the right partnerships, find the communications channels to make sure that we're able to get out in front of those people that literally don't have time to look at anything that we're putting out. Even if it's gold, even if it can change their lives, they may or may not be reading it too.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's some of the challenge and opportunities for us as technology provider is also educating, and especially that's why I think like talking about CPaaS, and like nobody really cares about buying CPaaS, or very few even understand or know what it is. It's like, how do we actually explain the value of the technology, and I guess use cases, and explaining exactly how it will impact the customer experience and the customer journey is the best approach, right? Using real use case and real pain points, and it's probably the way to go.
For sure.
Well, thank you so much. I think this was a really interesting and highlighting discussions. So much to cover when it comes to cloud communications, right? Like it, like we said, it can do so much that it's hard to nail it down to like, a 40 minutes discussion. But thank you so much for your insight. And I think this was very valuable for our listeners.
Yeah. Appreciate the time, Gwen. Always a pleasure.
Same. Thank you so much.
That's it for this episode of CX Education. Thanks for joining us. This show is brought to you by Cinch, the technology company that helps you create mobile experiences your customers love. Did you enjoy the episode? Then make sure to subscribe to CX Education wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, or visit cinch.com/podcast to get instant access to all the latest episodes.